Speechless. It is Thursday, what is it, 18th? 18th of August, and welcome. Interesting stuff tonight on the show. Main subject is the Maplewood elections for City Council, and this goes out to a lot of other cities and townships. It goes out, this show is seen basically every place west of St. Paul, north and south. Within, 5 miles north of St. Paul, 5 miles south, that type of thing, and all the way east. So you're going to say, why do I want to hear about Maplewood elections? Well, you want to hear about it because we're going to be talking about procedure. Now, I don't want to say that either because that sounds boring. Well, it's not boring. You need to know what's going on in your elections and some of the issues that are raising themselves up in the Maplewood elections to understand what can go on in your own area to make sure elections are credible and the vote tally is being counted right. You know, people say, it's the person with the power is the person who counts the votes. So that's a lot of, and it's happened before, that's how people get in. By the vote counter, not necessarily who really voted for who. So there's some things that may be anomalies, things that took place in the election that aren't right. Yeah, you get to decide on that, but I'm just going to give you some information on things that may or may not have happened. The other big issue we're going to talk about is the Viking Stadium, and for people who don't live in Ramsey County that watch this, Washington County people will watch this. Well, how does that affect me? Well, again, this is going to be about principles. This is going to be about what government should do, should not do, what's the role of government, and I want to engage you in that process. Now, anybody, feel free to call in the show. You see the phone number down there, 651-747-3838, and call in with your comments or questions. And also, if you don't want to call in with your comments or questions, or have show suggestions, or want to tell me what you think about the show, there's an email address down there, speechless_SEC@yahoo.com. So give us your comments, feedback, suggestion, ideas. You may want to do a little clip for the show yourself. You can send it there, and we may or may not put it on the air. No promises, but we get a lot of input from various people and various sources as to what's taken place around the city and towns and around the state. So you can have your input there as a way to get information out potentially. We do not do fundraising on this show. This is totally non-profit, volunteer shows, so you can be part of that too. Plus, I got to say, if you want to learn anything about TV studios or TV production, SCC Studios here in White Bear Lake are an excellent place to get a great education on that and just see how it's done, and you can participate in as much as you want and just get a feel of it and take tours of the building, and it's just a fun thing to do if you like it. I mean, it's a way to find out whether you like it or not, but you can get to see the behind the scenes, or you can be behind the scenes, or you can be out front on the TV if you want to do that. For those with a type A personality or narcissist, who knows? I don't think I fit into either of those categories, right? All right. So anyway, Maplewood elections, Ramsey County Charter Commission. Also going to be spend a little time follow up on the Wisconsin Supreme Court domestic violence case between the two justices in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. A little more information there is going on. We're also going to talk about the school board and the levy that's coming up for 6/22, but it's also a general discussion relating to grades and money and teacher salary. And I'm going to tie in a little bit of what's happening in Spokane also, because my sister's running for the school board in Spokane, and I see a lot of similar things happening in Spokane, Washington, is happening out here. And we'll have a general discussion on that. Also, there's a Maplewood sex abuse allegations that took place for a church here from one of the church volunteers. And some of the comments that were going on in the newspaper, and I'm glad these things are being exposed, but some of the comments are way out there that are taking place, and we're going to comment on the comments that were in the Pioneer Press relating to that. So now I was gone. Of course, I was here last week, but I was gone for a couple weeks out in Spokane for a vacation, also to help out with my parents. They're getting up there in age, and my dad spent a few days in the hospital, which, if you heard my show last week, talked about these, he kind of got trapped into going to the emergency room, and the emergency room kind of took him over and did a bunch of tests that he didn't need, and he was stuck in the hospital for 6 days and couldn't talk to his doctor for that whole period of time. And we found out the hospital that he was at has what's called hospitalists. So the information gets kind of central control, and he needed to talk to his doctor because he has a disease called myasthenia gravis, which is a form of MS, but an overactive immune system, and it causes your muscles to be weak, but it's not MS. There's actually some medication for this. And when he was finally able to get out of the hospital, and it took us some effort to get him out, he was finally able to get to his doctor, and his doctor said, they're just messing up your medications here. And it's just, this is what's coming with Obamacare. And we have to watch out about that because you may not be able to get the person that you want to have. And the other thing is, these doctors no longer have to take the Hippocratic Oath. They no longer have to say the patient is number one. And they don't have to swear to that. And I think only about 11% of doctors have to do that or have done that anymore. So it's a critical thing that you know that it is no longer about you, the patient. It is about the hospital. It's about the money. It's about the budget. It's no longer about the best interest of the client, but what are best practices, and that's a code word. Anytime you hear best practices, I mean, we're going to run you through the generic mill, and we're not going to know your inside and outsides and what's unique about you, and where you're just going to be passed along from doctor to doctor to doctor, and you will not have a specific doctor that will kind of oversee your whole case. It's a sad situation. Anyway, I bring that up because I had to get from Minneapolis to Spokane, okay? And a basic question I have for you is, if you got 10 minutes to get on your flight and you don't have your ID, what happens? Okay, now, why would I know? Basically because I took a flight to Spokane and I did not bring my ID with me. I left it at home. And so we were there early, not as early as I wanted to be, but we were there in time, early enough. But it took forever to get our one piece of luggage on the airplane, and then we had to wait a long time getting through the line. By the time I got to the up front to get through the line, I go to see the person that checks your ticket, checks your ID. I says, look, I forgot my ID. Okay, flight leaves in 10 minutes, all right? So, and my kids are there, and they have their ID, and I said, you guys just go get on the plane. We'll figure this out and see what's going to happen here. And so I got, you get pulled to the side. They get a special person that comes out and talks to you, and they ask you a bunch of questions. Do you got any other form of ID? I had nothing. I mean, literally had nothing. Didn't have utility, didn't have auto insurance. I had nothing that could identify me. So how do you get on the airplane? You got 10 minutes to go, okay? So what they do is and I don't advise doing this procedure, okay, and going through this route. They ask you a bunch of questions, and they get on the phone and they ask you, well, what state was your Social Security issued in? Oh, the other thing that they make you do is they make you sign this form that they can, well, you know what, you don't have time to read it. And you don't get a copy of that form either that you signed. And it's about 2 paragraphs of information basically saying this allows us to do some research on you to find out who you are. But there was a whole bunch of laws and statute numbers and whatever, and I don't have a copy of that, but it was like, I got to get on the airplane. So I signed it, and, you know, they asked a number of questions, and once they had my permission, they were able to do some research. And who's your neighbor, and what kind of vehicle do you drive, and of course I think they were on the Department of Motor Vehicles website and all kinds of things like that. So it wasn't a whole lot of questions, but it was enough, and they said, okay, you can go. Well, that whole process took about 5 minutes, and about 3 minutes of that was waiting for people to get there, for answers to come back. And so then I had 5 minutes to get on the airplane. What do? You still got to go through the screeners. Well, they were nice enough to push me through, and basically the last person, it was actually somebody that got on the plane, a couple people that had gone on the plane after me, but I was there with a minute to go, and of course my kids were happy to see me. So anyway, the bottom line is you don't need ID to get on an airplane. However, you better get there plenty early in order for them to check you out. And you just don't want to do that. Bring your driver's license. Don't forget it like I did. And then I had the same problem coming back because I was out there and still had no ID, and asked the same questions. And anyway, it only took about 5 minutes to get me through. There weren't long lines or anything, and so I was there about an hour and a half early for my flight, and waited around for a bit, but it's better to be certain. So that's what happens. And now, can you imagine if everybody didn't have their ID, then you'd have some really, really slow lines going through. But I think of all the 500 people that were going through the checkout, I was the only one that didn't have their ID. And some people were saying, oh, you better go home, and get it, or can somebody drive your ID to you? And I just says, look, it's going to be too late one way or the other. I'm just going to find out what happens, and that's what happens. But I could have missed that flight. There's no question. It was close, because I know they don't wait for anybody. Okay. So that's how to get through the airport. Just a real quick thing here on the a Maplewood church youth leader was accused of sexually abusing a boy, and this is at I believe, the First Evangelical Free Church. And according to the article in the Pioneer Press, the guy's last name was Weldon, and had been a volunteer for 15 to 20 years, and supposedly he admitted to sexually abusing some boys there. Now, I mean, this is a terrible thing, and of course a person that has some authority, and people who want to abuse are going to search out these type of situations, whether it's Boy Scouts or people in authority, whether it's police officers, school teachers. It happens in all walks of life, in all arenas, in all positions of authority. There are people out there that they're just going to do that, and you're not going to stop it, and usually until after the fact. That's the way life is. And of course you can't arrest somebody saying, well, we think you're going to do it. Well, unless you're presumed to be a terrorist, which that would mean you're a veteran. In this case, somebody made comments on the website that said, hey, that's why I don't go to church, just because of what happens in church. These type of things can happen in church. Well, does this person then not drive a car? Does this person then not go to school or to the university or not go to the grocery store? I mean, it's just a fallacious reasoning, and totally there's no common sense. As my daughter and I, we like to use a word, we use this word called nonsense, and it's just a bunch of nonsense. For example, here there's a police chief in Wisconsin, Gary Wierski, he's 55, of Menominee, pleaded not guilty and not guilty by reason of mental defect to 14 felony charges. And these felony charges were sexually related, two counts of causing a child older than 13 to view or listen to sexual activity. 6 counts of felony sexual assault of a child, and by a person who works or volunteers with children. So this is a police chief that did this. The point is then, do you not interact with the police? Do we not have police then? Do we not put police in authority? I mean, it's just nonsense, this reasoning. So just because something happens in some place, yeah, people need to be diligent, people need to be cautious, and kids need to know boundaries. And they need to be able to speak up when they can. But to say, I will therefore, that's why I don't go to church, that's just ridiculous. This guy then can't do anything in life because he would potentially be at risk. So that's that information, which also, you know, relates to domestic violence. And the Wisconsin Supreme Court case, where not a Supreme Court case, 2 Supreme Court justices, one a woman and one a man, went and had an altercation, and the woman Supreme Court justice went and said, he choked me. And so and of course, from everything I've read, and the witnesses in the case have said, hey, you know, this never happened. It didn't happen at all. She's just making up false allegations. And so with that taking place, and the allegations taking place, now you have a problem with a prosecutor of that county who pretty much knows the justices anyway, having to decide whether to prosecute the case or not. Well, they did the right thing and they recused themselves. They moved it out to a different county. And so now that prosecutor is looking at the evidence as to whether they should charge the man in this case, Justice Prosser, for domestic violence charges or choking. You know, in Minnesota, that's an automatic felony charge, automatic. And, you know, of course, you then can say not guilty, and you have a hearing and try to figure out whether it happened or not, but it's automatic here in Minnesota. I don't know about Wisconsin. But the update there is that now a prosecutor in a different county is looking at the evidence, listening to the evidence to decide whether to prosecute or not. In Minnesota, you have to prosecute. You have to get charged. You have to get prosecuted. Different ball game there, but it's kind of interesting. I mean, Wisconsin's a hotbed of election results and you know, fighting back and forth. Of course, they had the recall elections there in Wisconsin, where 8 elected officials were up for recall. Only 2 of them changed hands. 2 Republicans lost to, and 2 Democrats won. Other than that, the balance of power in Wisconsin is 17 Republicans and 16 Democrats, which really doesn't mean anything. That means everything's a toss-up now over there. But with all the hoopla going on in Wisconsin, now you got this Supreme Court domestic violence case going on. And here's why I like this case, because there's just a whole bunch of misinformation out there about domestic violence, who commits domestic violence and why, and it's very easy for a woman to shout, he did something, and I was abused. And basically the full force and effect of the law comes down on the person, the woman who cries, I've been abused. Women do get abused, and it needs to stop. But 40% of all abuse allegations are false. So that's high enough that there should be some discretion, there should be some investigation significantly to find out if there's evidence contrary to what's being alleged. And hopefully this case will help do that if Justice Prosser did not do what he said and this other justice is overreacting. So it's in the different county prosecutors' hands now, and well, I'll keep giving you updates on what's going on there. Studio or control room, we're going to do the Maplewood recount first. So get the DVD ready on that one, and then we'll run the tape for that. But before we get into Maplewood elections, I want to talk about school boards. And my sister's running for school board out in Spokane, and it's just interesting to see how the system works out there. Spokane, Eastern Washington State's more conservative, more Tea Party. The Ron Paul people have a lot of power over there. But it's interesting, and I know what happens here. If you're in a Republican area, Democrats will come in and run as Republicans. Okay, and if you're in a Democrat area, Republicans will come in and run as Democrats because that's how they get in power. That happens there. That's happening in Spokane right now, where I know my sister is the conservative Republican, and right now she now will be in the general election, but she's running against the school board endorsed, union endorsed, a DFL endorsed candidate who says she says she's a Republican, and only she's for national education and nationalizing all the tests and having the United States federal government tell the states and tell the local school districts what to teach and how to teach it, and so. But she calls herself a Republican and is getting some Republican support. And she's not. She's totally, left-wing, DFL, dumb down your students and only use, this is my opinion, and only use education to socialize students. We don't care what they know. It's just have a feel-good policy. And in Spokane, for education, for 10th grade math, it's a 60% failure rate for 10th grade math. And then 90% of the kids going into junior college have to take remedial math. So understand this, these teachers are not underpaid. That teachers being underpaid, that's out the door. That's not happening anymore. In many cases, in my opinion, they're overpaid. As a matter of fact, my sister established, we've heard of No Child Left Behind, but in Spokane schools, they got like 5 high schools, 41 schools. They have over 100, they have 110 administrators who make over $100,000 a year. So she termed the phrase, no administrator left behind. That's the Spokane schools policy. And you'll find that here around the state. The administrators are making a lot of money. But look at the results. Even in Minnesota and at the local school boards here and around, I noticed Matamidi, according to the numbers that came out, they were high. Some very, very high. in compared to the rest of the state. But when you're talking about being in the 40s for passing 10th grade math and science is being low, it's not a priority. I mean, our school board needs to be held accountable, and we need to get elected officials in there that will hold the teachers and the administration accountable for these poor results. And it's happening across the state of Minnesota. And a lot of that reason is because of national education and federal government coming in and dictating. But that's what a lot of these people want to have. And so here's the problem with math and science, and why it doesn't work. Why it doesn't work with the philosophy of socializing kids, and such words are being used as, again, as best practices. These are the best ways to teach them new math, consensus, and group dynamics is coming in. Well, you know what? That doesn't work for math. Okay? 2 plus 2 equals 4. Well, they're actually doing it. Say, no, kids, you know, 2 plus 2 can equal 5, if that's what you come to consensus with. And that's why our math scores are pretty low, is because that type of teaching doesn't work in math or science. The results are what they are. If you can't do the math, and at least in Spokane, and I don't know what's happening here, the kids are getting computers too quick. They don't know the processes. They don't know how to do things. I was just talking to a former educator here. I says, hey, look, you know, you tell them that carbon-14 dates things really old, okay? And we got these old ages for carbon-14 by using that data system. I want the kids to know how carbon-14 dating works. We don't teach them that. We just say, accept this. And all these scientists say it works. Of course, there's a huge group of scientists that say, no, it doesn't work. There's too many assumptions built into carbon-14 dating to make it work. But here's the whole philosophy of consensus education. Well, you know, we run through this process with these assumptions, and we get 55,000 years old. We run the same material through same processes, and we get 2.4 billion years old. You know, the bottom line, these dating systems don't work. You know, there are more than, you know, carbon-14 is one dating system. There's radiometric dating, and there's, I don't know how many. I know there's at least 16 radiometric dating systems. And if you date the same piece of material that you believe is old, using all these dating systems, not one of them comes up with about the same age. Not one of them. That tells me the dating system doesn't work. Okay, but they say, well, no, that's just the variable in there. Well, the variable could be a million years. You know, that's a lot of time for a variable. And so it's more important to teach about processes, and in math, they're not getting the long division processes. So in Spokane, you have kids that are going out and saying, we got, these are kids that are taking the college math, or, you know, the college prep math, and they're getting special honors for passing math and doing things. They can't do long division. They're not able to do long division. And that, how do you get through and get that high quality of math and not being able to do some of the basics? That's just wrong. So my sister's running for school board out there. Now she's in the general election. But here in town also, we still got the problem. And check the results for your school district. How are they doing? Hey, and if you're under 80% people passing and getting through the system, there's something wrong going on. Okay, and there needs to be changes made. And we need to hold our teachers, and most often it's the school board administration that needs to be held accountable to get a higher results. But then you get Atlanta, who this was in the paper August 14th in the Pioneer Press. But Atlanta there's an article, A Teachable Moment from Atlanta. The administration falsified the test results. And Atlanta got all these rewards for their school district saying, hey, we're great, and we got these great results. And they were all falsified. Not all of them, but a lot of them were, and they were cheating, and they got caught cheating. So, accountability is just something that needs to happen on all ends and all places. And it's just something to watch out for, not only Spokane, but out here in whether it's Matamidi or the ISD 622. So anyway, that's tying in all my trip to Spokane with things that happen out here. All right, we want to get then into, what are we doing, Maplewood elections. In the primary election for Maplewood City Council, I just want, and we're just going to play a couple minutes of this tape. I mean, there's probably 11 minutes in there or whatever, but I'll just tell you when to stop, so keep my mic on. But Elizabeth Sletton went down to the Secretary of State's office because there was a problem with the reporting that went down at the Secretary of State's office. And here's a couple clips that I took, and listen to the word unofficial. See how many times you hear that before we come back. All right.
On behalf of Mark Ritchie, who's the Secretary of State.
Okay, about the election, the unofficial election results on our website?
Yep, and your website, yes.
Okay. Well, I can see if the elections director is available. I know that there were a few glitches with the results, but again, they're unofficial.
Okay, so. Obviously.
Yeah, I'll be glad to talk about the unofficial results that we put out on our website.
Okay. Information. Who gets that information first on election night as the results are coming in?
Right, Ramsey County would get it from the city, and then Ramsey County would provide it to us.
Okay, so the order is the city of Maplewood gets the election results. They, in fact, forward it to Ramsey County, and then Ramsey County forwards it to the Secretary of State then.
Right, they have. They're not required to, but they do.
They're not required, but that's the order in which the Secretary of State's office has.
Unofficial. There are a few glitches. So here's what a lot of candidates do, is they take the results from the Secretary of State's, and of course, the national news has these, they're selecting winners in the process. These are all unofficial results. And as we found out, at least in Maplewood, the Secretary of State's office had votes going to Duluth, Rochester, I believe St. Louis Park, and Maplewood, but they were all over the place. And the computer system was obviously messed up, and of course that's why they were out there unofficial. And we had a few glitches, and then of course, as we showed last week, they were saying, well, we fixed them that night, and then we said, well, we fixed them in the morning, and then even after that, they were, after that tape was taken, they fixed some more glitches later on in the day. So, you know, they said they had it worked out, but they were still working on it. Now, in the Maplewood, the vote count, there ended up being a runoff election, and Elizabeth Sletton got 463 votes, and Rebecca Cave had 470. That was what was certified by the city of Maplewood. So that certification is the official number, and since it was close, there ended up being a recount. Now on the DVC Pro tape, that's ready to go. Let's play that, but we don't want any sound on that. So we're just going to play the tape. I'm going to talk over it. This is the recount that took place in Maplewood, and so that's VTRC. So there we go. Now we've got no sound here, but the two people there's two tables, and the people in the middle are from Ramsey County. They helped out with the election, and the city clerk for Maplewood, Karen Guilfoyle, is giving instructions, and she's passing out the packages there of votes, and there's typically 2 packages for each precinct, and that one there is, I believe, precinct 1, and the bigger one is the ballots that were taken at the time, and notice how hard it is to open up these ballots here, these envelopes. And they're to be sealed, and they're to be signed by election judges that they were sealed. The smaller envelopes is the absentee ballots for that precinct. Now, in this process, some precincts didn't have the absentee ballots. All the absentee ballots are done at the city clerk's office or at town hall. They're all processed there. There's supposed to be an absentee ballot board. That was never officially approved by Maplewood. That needs to be done. Times that the ballot board is meeting needs to be posted. As far as I know, that never happened. It could have, but I didn't see or hear of anything. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. But I know in the last general election that took place, there was no, now he's getting ready on the top left to open up the ballot. Now see how hard that is? I mean, you know, and then they got there's a label that's placed across the seam there that's supposed to be signed by the election judges of that precinct. And there's Elizabeth Slutton in the camera view. And there she's having a hard time also opening them. Now, so some only had one package, and right now the assumption is they had no absentee ballots for that precinct. Not lightly, but there are some very small precincts compared to others. Some precincts have about 1,000 voters, where I know my area has about 4,700 voters, somewhere in that range. So it's a big difference. They could have not had any absentee ballots. Now that's just hard to open. Okay, so we can bring it out here now. And what I haven't been able to set up is to show you, you know, there's been trouble in Precinct 7 before. With the Coleman race, a bunch of ballots just showed up. Again, there was problems with the Tom Emmer race that I recall. But here Precinct 7 shows up, and instead of there just being 2 packages, there were 3. Okay, you didn't need 3. Why were there 3 packages? What was going on with that? You know, we don't know. And then also with Precinct 7, those things weren't sealed. Their packages, you know, those are regular business envelopes that have this the flap on the side, or on the top, the long way versus the short way, and they have that peel off where you peel off and stick. Well, there was no, the peel offs were still on. Okay, so they didn't seal them that way for Precinct 7. The other thing that was going on is the label that's supposed to be going across the seal did not go across the seal. Okay, and from what I was told, and I'll have to go back and review the tapes here to see if we can see anything, but the envelopes were white and the labels were white, which makes it hard to tell from a camera as to where exactly those labels were. Well, I mean, that's just, these things weren't sealed. You know, that if that's what's happening, I mean, that's a terrible allegation, and that's a terrible thing to have take place. Again, Precinct 7. So, I mean, people, if you're living in Precinct 7, well, and the Republican Party or the DFL Party needs to get out there and make sure they do it right, because from what we can tell, they're not doing it right. The other thing happened is, of course, with the recount, Rebecca Cave ended up with 2 more votes than what was certified. And of course, we don't know if the recounters miscounted. They had Elizabeth Slutton coming in with the same amount as she had during the During the general election, or primary, she had 463 votes. That's what came through on the recount. Rebecca Cave ended up with 472 during the recount when she only had 470 during the primary. That shouldn't happen. I mean, a 2-vote swing, and you add up, you know, all the cities and all the counties where that takes place, you can have a significant difference statewide. There should not be this difference going on. And so what was taking place? It was also interesting to note that some people voted for John Nephew and Elizabeth Sletton on the same ballot. And, you know, the only sense you can make out of that is they wanted to cancel out their own ideology because these people are on different ends. You know, and maybe they just wanted to see the debate go on at City Council, which should happen. There should be some opposing viewpoints rather than this unanimous stuff. I mean, there should be some good debate going on, and that's not going on in Maplewood right now. In my opinion, they're doing everything they can do to take away your liberties and take away your property rights as much as they can get away with for now. Okay, a number of observations here. The ballots were unsealed by Precinct 7s. They weren't signed by election judges. What I was told, they were signed by city staff who are part of the absentee ballot board. Now, absentee ballots now are staying down at City Hall. They're not going to other places. They're not going to the precincts. So those are all counted there. Those things should have been signed by the absentee ballot board. Okay, and from what we can tell, they were, but only 2 people signed them. They didn't change it up as to who's signing, and there's a number of people on the ballot board. Again, Precinct 7 had 3 envelopes where most of them had 2. So that was weird. The absentee ballot board was never commenced. There was no schedule for the ballot board as to when they were meeting, because when these absentee ballots come in, that ballot board has to meet every 5 days until 14 days before the election, and they got to meet every 3 days. So just a lot of problems there that need to be looked over and checked out. So yeah, I don't know, people you take with it, you run with it, you know, you got to be vigilant in this process and sign up as an election judge, sign up as an election watcher to see what's going on, because you know, Maplewood's got a problem. And the other weird thing is the vote count was way down this year, and I think a lot of people did not know that there was even a primary going on. And of course, that's the candidate's responsibility to get it out there. I don't think it's the responsibility of government or the city council to get that information out. They may do it as a candidate. They may try to get that information out there as a candidate or because they want to, but there shouldn't be any money spent on advertising that we got an election going on, because that's the candidate's responsibility. But it was a very, very low turnout, and you know, who knows why. Okay, we are going next to now Ramsey County Charter Commission, and we have some tape on that. I just need to know if it's ready, the DVC Pro tape. The first speaker on this is Greg Copeland. Well, what's going on is that Ramsey County has a charter commission, and what's really interesting is that the charter commission and the people of the county can put a referendum together, and they could put issues on a ballot that will supersede whatever the laws of the state are. Okay, of course they can't supersede the Constitution, but in this case, the state can go and say, okay, Minnesota Vikings, you get your stadium, but right now the law says that the people of Ramsey County, if you're going to impose a tax on them, they get to vote on that. but the state can change the law and say, okay, no, there's a special law, Ramsey County doesn't get to vote on that. Well, Ramsey County is a charter county. So that means Ramsey County could establish its own law beyond the state. So the Ramsey County can go and say, you know what, state, you pass that law, you know, too bad. Oh, you know, as people, we're passing a law that says you can't do that. In Ramsey County, referendums that come through the Charter Commission or through the commissioners, that's the law of the land. So it's something that Hennepin County couldn't do. And what you're seeing with this Charter Commission or with the Viking Stadium is all these people from outstate are pushing the bill, not the people that live in Ramsey County. There may be a couple, but mostly the leaders of this are from Moorhead and Fairmont. They're from outstate that are trying to push a tax onto Ramsey County citizens, a big tax, a ½ cent sales tax. That's just for the Ramsey County part. Then there's the state part on top of that, which is which is another $350 million. All right. Well, let's watch this video here. This is Greg Copeland making comments about this Charter Commission and the Vikings tax.
I saw no other hands up.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to present a proposed amendment to the charter. Tracks the topic of the proposed expenditure by the county commission of let me find the bond.
Excuse me, would you provide your name for the record, please?
Oh, sorry, yeah. I'm so used to coming to your meetings, I forgot to do that. Greg Copeland. I live in St. Cloud, 612 East Cook Avenue. Ramsey County Commissioners are proposing a 674, well, let's round it off, $675 million levy, a bond issue rather. And you know, your meeting last month, well, no, it wasn't last month. You had power hours last month. It was June. I came to that meeting with this very document, and as you can see, I left the June date on there, because I was troubled by one of the resolutions language that you adopted, and I forget whether this was the first or the second one, but it says in the body of there, it says, there's no known effort to circumvent the Ramsey County Charter by denying the citizens of Ramsey County the right to submit a county board-approved ordinance to a vote of the people by referendum as guaranteed by the charter. Well, you know, I read that, but before that I read the county's language in their agreement that they signed off on. On page 5 of their 12-page agreement back in May, it says the county agrees to take action. This is the agreement with the Vikings, sorry. The county agrees to take action at the county board level as soon as reasonably and legally possible. The county shall take immediate steps to draft an agreed-upon ordinance for resolution approving the county's revenue source subject to legislative approval. And they also talk about an exemption from state debt and bond limitations in that same section. On page 10 of that agreement, it says specifically, on page 10, item F, no referendum to vote. The authority shall, no referendum shall be required.
Was that the 5 minutes there? That wasn't...
$1 million.
Huh? No, it's still...
Over 30 years, proposed to be retired at this point by a sales tax levy. You know, you folks made some good votes last time. You voted on 2 resolutions, and one of the newspapers thought you'd split the baby. Well, I don't think you did. I think what you said was, you know, we want the charter to be protected. In terms of the status that it has to protect taxpayers. And you also indicated that the charter commissioners, you folks here tonight, don't make public policy. Well, nothing wrong there. But I think what we have is a county commission that is seeking, in fact, to make public policy, which is contrary to this charter. In the charter, there's a section on taxation and bonding, the amendment that I prepared, and I'm not an attorney, you got one that, you got a whole slew of them. I'm surprised I only got one here tonight. Usually there's 2 or 3. But anyway, there's a section in there on bonding, 9.05. And it's pretty open-ended. Basically, the county commissioners are given a free hand, levy the bonds. Instead of looking at this as a tax issue, as some people have, I think it's not just a tax issue, it's also a question of the county charter commission providing some protection to taxpayers about levying $675 million worth of bonds. And currently, we don't have that protection. And I won't walk through all the language here because...
All right. I think you get the gist of that. The Charter Commission was established to protect the taxpayer and to protect the finances so that the people of the county have the final say. And what he's saying there, for bonding and for expenditures, Ramsey County commissioners can bond anything. They get that vote in there. I think there's 7 people on the commission. They get that vote in there, and if it's a majority vote, they do the bonding. It's not like school board elections where you get to vote on bonds, on the bondings for the school board. In Ramsey County, you get, this is the commissioners that get to do that. So Greg Copeland's point is, hey, Charter Commission, you have a charter, okay, and the state is trying to take away your charter and your ability to act as a charter by not allowing referendums for the Viking Stadium. You need to protect that. That's why you exist. Protect your ability to cancel out somebody trying to put a tax on you without the people's vote. And then he says it's not only just the tax, it's also the bonding too that you need to protect. Okay, so big important statements. And now there's going to be August 31st, there's going to be a special meeting on this issue of the Viking Stadium. We don't have the location yet. It might be downtown in the St. Paul Courthouse building, but what room we don't know yet. Probably where the Ramsey commissioners meet. So that should give you some hint to where that might be. I think that's on the 3rd floor of the building with the Indian with the peace pipe statute. So that ought to help. Okay, now Bob Zick comes in and presents some other information. So let's see what Bob has to say here.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Bob Zick, Ramsey County resident, and several issues tonight. First, I would hope this body would take action on the Minnesota Voters Alliance request and directive, and as stated by Andy Selleck and followed up by Mr. Greg Copeland. This is a very serious matter, and I take you back to the resolution that this body passed their last meeting. Resolved, the Ramsey County Charter Commission opposes any effort to circumvent the Ramsey County Home Rule Charter and the citizens of Ramsey County by denying Ramsey County citizens the right to vote on a county-wide sales tax, or preventing Ramsey County citizens from seeking a referendum to place this extremely important public policy on a ballot for the citizens of our county to make a final decision. And be it further resolved, the Ramsey County Charter Commission values the right of the people to choose by referendum and would oppose any effort to circumvent the referendum process presented in the Ramsey County Charter. Now that's your own official resolution, and what the Minnesota Voters Alliance is requesting is just a fulfillment of that resolution, and it's a preemptive action against the state legislature to come in here and, as your resolution says, circumvent the charter. So I would hope that the discussion would take place on this, and it wouldn't be a matter of tabling it for further discussion at your quarterly meetings, which would absolutely prevent it from getting on the ballot by election time. All right, that's that first issue. In looking at this, I also went tried to find the members of the Charter Commission on the website. First, it's hard to for somebody that's not totally familiar with your site to find the members and walk through there. That's a difficult process. Next, once you do find the commission members, half the commission members don't have a phone number listed. I really think that people that are serving the public ought to make themselves available and not just say they're 7/24 or 24/7. And when I looked at that, there was only one commissioner, and that's Mr. Olson over there, that listed his email address. I think that's something else that should be on there. I think when citizens of this county need to talk to one of their charter commissioners, it should be something that is available to them. Now, the other thing in looking at your own rules here, I noticed that members can be absent for 3 non-excused attendance. First of all, I have no clue what an excused absence is, but since you have quarterly meetings, my gosh, what is that, 9 months, a year? I would think that if a member can't be here, this body ought to set in place something for that member to be replaced.
All right, we've got about a minute left to go here. If that, they're going to start the music pretty soon. Can't contact these people. It's very difficult to get a hold of them. If you're an elected official or appointed official, you got to have your information out there. Also, another issue was a salary increase, a resolution put on the ballot so you don't have what's going down in California where these county officials and city officials are making $700,000 a year. It's just outrageous. So to put in some checks and balances there, and the county, the commissioners don't have to show up. The charter commissions don't have to show up. All right, next week, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Scientists have finally figured it out. If you're a creationist, you knew it from the beginning, you just didn't know why. Now we know what came first. Next week we'll look at that. Remember, if you don't stand up for other people's liberties, who's going to stand up for yours? God bless and have a great week.
Most simple of simple things you can have. Basically what this is doing is it's almost